First, our top story tonight. His polling numbers are impressive. He has become one of the most talked about conservatives in the race for the White House in '08, and he hasn't even announced he's running. Now, a short time ago, I spoke exclusively with former Senator Fred Thompson about his potential run for the White House. Here's the headline today in one of the newspapers. Opponents want dirt on Thompson. Combing public records looking for dirt.
Well, that's the advantage of having lived a perfect life, Sean, when you read things like that. Now, that's part of the deal anymore, as you know. I thought it may have been a little early. I thought it might come from the Democrats instead of Republicans. But that's the way it is nowadays. I mean, we're already accustomed to that. Somebody called up my wife a while back, said it was one of her old boyfriends, and said that he had something on her from when she was 16 years old. Of course, it wasn't any old boyfriend, but anyway, told a campaign official of ours that was helping us out, a helper, and said Thompson couldn't run because of this. And if they're doing that with regard to her, I can only imagine what they're going to do as far as I'm concerned. But, you know, it's kind of like gnats swarming around the war horse, you know. They aggravate you sometimes, but in the end, not that important.
And that's your attitude about it.
Yeah.
In the end, they specifically were going after public records, but all of this stuff. Are you prepared for that? I mean, obviously, this is the day and age of YouTube and cell phones, and everyone's got cameras and tapes and gotcha.
Yeah.
Do you think about that as you go through this?
Oh, sure. You know that, and you live with that, and that's what it's come to. That's why Americans are sick to death of politics and most politicians. Because that's what we do to each other. That's what we do to our friends. Now, you can imagine what it's going to be like in the general election.
How do you know these are Republicans?
But you don't let that dissuade you. Well, I could be wrong. I mean, I don't flatter myself enough to think that the Democrats right now are focusing in on me. If I'm wrong about that, then I'm highly flattered.
Yeah.
But that can't deter you. I mean,
bring us inside the Thompson mind in terms of what's going on inside of your mind as you make this decision about whether or not you want to get in this race and run for president. What are you thinking about?
Well, obviously there's some practical things, some contractual things that I'm doing. There's some family considerations. You don't change on a dime. You think you go in this direction with your family and your life, and you go in another direction. You take some time. I'm taking this time. I'm talking to some of the smartest people, I think, in the country about some things that are very important to me.
Does it worry you that to see the presidency under such fire? In other words, that the country's so divided, that the president's called all these names on a regular basis. I've got to think, you know, considering you want that position, that's something in the back of your head, well, that you know, with that job comes a lot of scrutiny and a lot of criticism, and could be a pretty lonely position up there.
Sure. But it naturally is in the back of your head, but that's where you ought to keep it. I mean, if that's your primary motivation, to avoid criticism and get a real good sleep every single night, then you ought to find another line of work, because that's not going to come with that.
Yeah.
But contrast that to what we're talking about here. Contrast that with the opportunity to do something about it here and to start afresh and to be able to go to the American people and say, look, we're in a different time now. We're in a different era. We're faced with things we've never been faced before. But we can do the things that we've always done before in times of crisis and come out of this one too. But we got to do things better. We got to be more honest with ourselves about our mistakes, and then we'll hitch up our britches and do what we've always done, and that is come out on the other end together. You know, we won the Cold War with Democrats and Republicans together. That's the way we're going to have to operate in the future, I think, with regard to the challenges that we face. And hopefully, once we get on down the road a little bit, cooler heads will prevail and maybe some new leadership in the Congress, and we can do a better job.
The biggest battle we have is this war on terror, this battle in Iraq. We have a really deep divide in the country. Senator Reid says the war is lost. We still have to finish the job there. Where do you stand in general on the war on terror, and more specifically in Iraq and on the divide surrounding Iraq?
Well, let's talk about Senator Reid for a moment. Right before I came over here, I was sitting outside getting a bite to eat before we did our interview. A young woman came up, asked if she could sit down and talk to me a minute. Her name was Kohler. She worked over at Morgan Stanley. But she had gone to West Point, and she had been a captain in the Army, and she was at the DMZ in South Korea at the time of 9/11. I asked her what she thought about this. She said, how in the world can any one of our leaders declare war, declare that the war has been lost when we've got troops in the field. My friends are over there in the field. I know what they think about this. And, of course, it's just like all other Americans think. The very idea that they would do this and undercut our efforts over there is unprecedented. And it's not only unprecedented, it's awful politics. We should not be fearful of these people politically. We just need to concentrate on what's right. What is right, we need to take advantage of any opportunity we've got down there. I've got a lot of faith in Petraeus. I knew him when he was at Fort Campbell when I was in the Senate. He tells me we've got a shot, we got to take that shot. We also have to keep in mind, though, there's going to be a day after Iraq. And whether we leave there under our own terms or not, it's still going to be a very dangerous world. If we leave there under bad circumstances, they're going to have a haven down there for terrorists. The whole area, I'm afraid, will become nuclearized. These Sunni countries are looking at what Iran is doing. And if we can't help with stability in that part of the world, they're going to help themselves. And they're going to go nuclear in terms of weaponry and the ability to counteract what Iran's doing. The whole region is up for grabs.
So how do we deal with that? We got the short-term problem of Harry Reid. We got the political problem. Harry Reid says we lost. We've got a win in Iraq. Then you have the possibility of the two things you mentioned earlier. You combine Islamic fanaticism and nuclear technology, and you've got a guy, Ahmadinejad, add to the equation that wants to wipe Israel off the map. You're President of the United States. That's a big burden to have on your shoulders.
Of course it is, but it's the #1 challenge of this century, and will be for a long time. And all these other things, all these other issues are important, different levels. This overwhelms everything else. And our nation has to have a strong deterrent. Some of these terrorists might or might not be able to be traced back. But these countries that are supplying them should know we have the ability to do a pretty doggone good job of tracing their activities back. Strong deterrent, much better intelligence. Then we got to enforce our borders. We have Al-Qaeda out there we know trying to get nuclear weapons. We have 40 countries that have fissile material that a lot of it that could make a bomb. A lot of it goes unguarded. We have porous ports and borders. Now, it doesn't take a genius to put all that together and see what kind of a challenge this country has.
You came out publicly. You disclosed you had lymphoma. What's the status of that? How tough is that? And how big is that a consideration for you as you make this decision?
Personally, it's a total non-factor. My family is more important to me and my own health is more important to me than any political campaign, I assure you, even this one. For me, it's a non-factor because that's what my doctors have told me, that it's one of those things that you can continue on with for years and it's totally manageable. I've never had an hour of symptoms either from the disease or treatment that I had when I took some treatment. So I go on about my business, but I thought it was important to lay it out for the American people because they deserve to know that. Other politicians, of course, have had similar problems, but mine was undisclosed. I didn't try to keep it secret necessarily. I'm just a private person to the extent that I can be.